we're going to have lunch will be brought in, and we'll have a brief break for lunch, and then our family panel will begin to speak. My name is Beth Alberts, and I'm the CEO of the Texas Center for the Missing and the director of the Houston Regional Amber Alert System. So if there's an Amber Alert in the 14-county Houston-Galveston region, we are the ones that work with law enforcement to make that happen. This is our first time to coordinate Missing in Harris County Day, and we're thrilled. We are so grateful for the Children's Assessment Center for being such a great host and great partners and letting us office here for free. Karen Kennard here is the Director of Training at the Children's Assessment Center. Did you want to say anything? Okay. She says no. Anyway, we're so glad to be hosting it here at our home base at the Children's Assessment Center. So grateful to everybody for coming. I do want to introduce to you Kristen Lee, who is with Adrian Garcia's office. She has brought a proclamation that she's going to read to us from County Commissioner's Court, declaring us Missing in Harris County Day.
Hi, again, my name is Kristen Lee. I'm with Commissioner Adrian Garcia's office, and I want to thank you all for inviting us to be a part of this day. It's such an important work that you all are doing, and I'm grateful that you've had us here today. I'm going to read just the Commissioner's proclamation here, declaring today Missing in Harris County Day. Whereas the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences received 1,496 decedents between 2012 and 2018 whose identities were initially unknown, and whereas the Harris County Institute for Forensic Sciences and the Center for the Missing, Harris County Sheriff's Office, Houston Police Department, and the local network of nonprofit service organizations and corporate sponsors have joined to help families of missing persons make connections and locate the missing, and whereas a public education event inviting Harris County residents to report missing persons, to voluntarily participate in national DNA databases, and openly review the medical exam, or to review open and existing medical examiner cases, will be held in Houston, Texas, at the Children's Assessment Center. And whereas the Texas Center for the Missing is joining the Children's Assessment Center, Harris County Institute of Forensic Science, Harris County Sheriff's Office, Harris County Sheriff's Office Foundation, Houston Police Department, National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, Brooks County Sheriff's Office, and South Texas Human Rights Center to host the 4th annual Missing in Harris County Day on April 27th, 2019. Now therefore be it resolved by the power vested in me by Harris County and the state of Texas that I hereby proclaim April 27th, 2019 as Missing in Harris County Day, and encourage residents to recognize the importance of connecting families and finding the missing. I hereby affix my signature.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
So we're going to have a pretty informal session, the next two sessions, because we want people to get their questions answered, and we want to give a chance for law enforcement to talk about what they do on missing persons cases, and if there's some kind of tip they can provide to families. I think particularly for families, it's helpful to hear for what is done in other jurisdictions. It doesn't always have to be what's being done, on your particular case, but to hear about all of the things that law enforcement does when they work so hard to help us locate missing loved ones. So we're going to, I would like to give each person, the law enforcement and forensics folks, to sort of offer some tips and everything, and then we're going to do, I probably have a couple of questions I'm going to provide. There are cards at the back for you to write a question on. If you have a question for the panel, and we'll do those questions at the end. I think that's it. So I'm going to start with Detective Darren Busey with the Houston Police Department's Missing Persons Unit.
Good morning. I'm, as Beth said, Detective Darren Busey. I work with the Missing Persons Unit with the Houston Police Department. Been doing so for about 23 years. First, I want to thank everybody here, all the volunteers that helped us get this going, and then all the families. Thank you for showing up and making this what it is, something that we've developed to help the families of the missing and to bring the missing back home. One of the things that we discussed during our meetings was what can the families do to help us initially when we first begin an investigation on a missing person, and that is we want as much, we don't know the families of the missing, obviously. We don't know them, but we have to get to know that family really fast to get our investigation going. We got to learn years of information, and if there's one thing that I think Sergeant Ewerling here would agree with, is that you just open your family book to us. Tell us if there's nothing we haven't heard. Let us know everything about your family. It really helps us develop a profile of the missing person and can give us direction of where our case goes. We want to be able to get enough information to obviously put into NamUs. Initially, we're going to put all that information into NCIC. From the time we get the report, we have 2 hours to get that into NCIC. So as soon as you make the report, within 2 hours, that information is put into NCIC. That's good on two parts. One, it's going to get that information out nationwide, but two, it's also going to send us information if say the missing person has been stopped on a traffic stop in Idaho. We enter that person into NCIC, we'd get a 24-hour hit that that person was checked and letting us know either the person, the vehicle, or something about that person was checked by law enforcement. And so getting that entry and getting enough information to put in that entry initially is very important. One thing we're going to do is ask the families to help us with is contact the hospitals. We're going to do an initial check of hospitals, but it always helps to check your area hospitals, clinics, things like that you know about that are in your neighborhood. We'll check Ben Taub, LBJ, Herman, all the major hospitals to see. We're going to check the ambulance board to see if there's been anybody transported, but sometimes those records aren't consistent. So that's why we ask the families to always follow up with that. We want to get enough information to put into NamUs, good photographs. We're going to get in contact with the family later to collect DNA and get that put into CODIS and all the national and state DNA databases. And Mike Nance is here from NamUs in another room. I'd encourage all of y'all to speak with him. If your case is in NamUs, go and review that case. Make sure the information is accurate, and if there's any new information that needs to be added, add it now. Add it today while you're here. It's a very good system. NamUs, if you don't already know, is viewable by the public, by the law enforcement, and by the medical examiners. And believe it or not, we get a lot of action with the public looking at NamUs. We constantly get calls, kind of like web sleuths. They're constantly comparing cases. So it gets a lot of activity, and it really helps us out. A little bit about our unit with the Houston Police Department Missing Persons Unit. We have 11 officers. We handle just shy of 10,000 cases a year. Gives you a little idea of the not just our workload, but the amount of missing people that are in the Houston jurisdiction, and that's not including Harris County and the surrounding counties. But we handle just shy of 10,000 cases a year. Many of those are runaways. Probably the majority, as far as probably half of those you could consider runaways. The other half are involved in interfering with child custody or missing juveniles, or missing adults. And with that, I think I've covered everything. That number equates to about 25 cases per day of what we handle.
Just in our 14 county, just in our 14 county region, there are about 14,000 new missing persons cases filed each year. So it is a tremendous issue in our area, and that's why events like this are so important. Sergeant Bonnie Ewerling from the Harris County Sheriff's Office Missing Persons Division is also here with us today. And if you'll just tell a little bit about what your unit does and what you might recommend people to do, and then like I said, after everybody speaks, we'll take questions.
I'm Sergeant Ewerling. I'm over the Harris County Sheriff's Office Missing Persons Unit. We have 4 investigators. Like Darren said, the biggest thing is when people first go missing, we understand sometimes they're high-risk lifestyles, and the family is worried about protecting them, that nothing's going to happen to them criminally, and they're not always honest with us with what is going on, because they're worried about what that person does and what they know that person's doing. That makes it extremely difficult for us when we're not getting all the information we need. One of the other huge obstacles we have is when multiple people in the family want to talk to the investigators. The more time we spend repeating the same story to different family members, the less time we have to be out there. And it's kind of a catch-22. You guys want the investigators to be available to talk to you, but you also want them out there looking for the missing person. And they can't be sitting at their desk on the phone talking to everybody in the family if they're out following up on leads and trying to find the missing person. So we ask that one person in the family be the contact person. And we have one person that we filter the information to in the family, and then that gives us time to go out and do what we need to do to try and locate the missing person. Any pictures or anything like that is extremely helpful also. Everybody's got tattoos now, so pictures of specific tattoos, anything like that is extremely helpful. We have a dentist who is an odontologist, which means he can get the dental records. So knowing the missing person's dentist, we can work on getting those records so that we can upload those into NamUs. And it makes the procedure much easier for us because dentist to dentist, he can get the records, upload them, and then we get them returned to the original dentist. And he will help. He's done some HPD cases too. So it doesn't matter who the original report was done with. You can reach out to us and we can have him get those dental records to get them into NamUs.
One thing I'd like to add too, and I should have said first and foremost, is there's no 24-hour waiting period for a report. I know I've spoken in front of many of you guys before, but there's no 24-hour waiting period, no 48-hour. You can report them as soon as they can be walking down the street away from the house, wandering off. You can make a report. And for somebody with Alzheimer's or autism or intellectual disability, I would encourage people to, before you even run after them, to call the police, get them en route, and then go and try and retrieve them, because you can always call the police back and say you recovered them, and we can turn around. But that time is critical. One of the other things is there are a lot of people think we can do a silver, amber, or endangered missing persons alert on any case. We have to go by the rules of the Department of Public Safety, basically DPS. And each one of those has 5 categories. They're all a little bit different, but if we can meet all those requirements within the time frame, we have 72 hours, then we can issue one. But we have to have, in most cases, we have to have a diagnosis, or we have to have, for an Amber Alert, a very substantial amount of evidence showing that there's foul play. We just can't say that they're missing. Yeah, they could meet foul play and then make a silver alert. That would make the system highly ineffective because our signs would be flashing 24/7. And the way it is now, I get calls from people saying, the sign's out there still flashing. Why is that? And it's a new case. It's a new one out there. You see it all the time, silver alert, amber alert. So we have to have those criteria, but I will say this, if you don't get a silver alert, don't get an amber alert, we still put it out to the media. And our media reaches way out beyond Houston, reaches out to all the surrounding counties. We're going to put that information out. It just may not get onto highway TxDOT signs, but that information is going to be flooding the system with information on the missing person. So there's still, take some comfort that just because there's no silver alert or amber alert, your information is still getting out there with the help of the Houston media.
Thanks so much. We're really thrilled to have with us Supervisory Special Agent Jeanette Malazzo from the FBI. She works primarily in the human trafficking unit, but we asked her to come today and talk about that because I know we get a lot of calls where somebody will say, my child is missing, I think they're being trafficked, and there really are some sort of risk factors for trafficking, and so we thought we'd ask her to, because generally, like a lot of the cases, most of the cases we work, the person has not been trafficked. And so while it is a concern, it's certainly not always the case. And if you, any of you that can't project, you can come up. This is the only microphone we have. So.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jeanette Malazzo. I've been in Houston for about 4 months now, so I'm still getting familiarized with Harris County. But essentially, my squad with the FBI, I'm responsible for anything having to do with children that has a federal nexus or that we have authority to investigate. Human trafficking is probably our biggest program here because Houston is such a huge hub for human trafficking, both international and domestic. We primarily investigate cases of domestic minor sex trafficking. So we work in conjunction with the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance with the Houston Police Department. They do great work there. Their primary victim services partner is the YMCA, and we get referrals via human trafficking hotlines. We get referrals from victims themselves who come forward either to our agency or to local agencies, and if it's a minor, we will do our best to take on the case and work with whatever agency brings the case to us, because the biggest tool that we have in combating human trafficking is our federal sentencing. We unfortunately because the caseload with Harris County is so huge, sometimes they can't get the sentences or the punishments for traffickers that they would like. So we use our U.S. Attorney's Office and our federal judicial system to get higher sentences for traffickers of children. In terms of how we get our information, like I said, we work in conjunction with the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance. So if they have a case that they think, you know what, this is a minor, this is a good thing to bring to the U.S. Attorney's Office, because this guy has been trafficking for years. He's been trafficking numerous victims. We really need to get him off the streets, and Harris County may not be able to get that sentence. So because we have mandatory minimums, a lot of times these individuals will face 15 years and upwards in federal prison. The average sentence that we get on some of our cases is 30 years and up. So we take great pride in being able to provide that sort of justice for the victims of human trafficking. I'm trying to think what else I can share with you guys. I also handle international parental kidnapping, crimes against children, child pornography. We house the Innocent Images program, so we work in conjunction with ICAC, the Internet Crimes Against Children, which Houston Police Department has a unit dedicated to that. We also work child abductions. However, contrary to what is sometimes in the media or in movies and film, we as the FBI don't necessarily come in and take over a case. We are not in most jurisdictions, especially in larger ones like Harris County or Houston, we are not the experts. The local officers and sheriff's departments, they're the ones who are out there on the streets every day, and they know how to work these cases. However, at times we have resources that they may not have access to, such as social media, technology, and we have the reach of the entire U.S. So if there's things that are outside of their jurisdiction that they may not have access to, that's how we can often provide help. So we're not looking to take over cases from local departments for the most part. In some areas of the country, the FBI may have the capabilities. If it's a smaller department in a smaller area, that's where you'll see more involvement where we take the lead. But like I said, in larger areas like Houston or Harris County, we're going to take a back seat and just provide assistance whenever we're needed. And then I'm trying to think what else I can. Then we also international parental kidnapping, and we don't generally deal with adults, missing adults. We don't. However, we will offer our assistance in any way possible. I have agents who worked with Harris County Houston Police Department, who will be there if anything is needed. But like I said, we try to take a back seat because, for instance, the Sheriff's Department and HPD, they're the experts in dealing with missing persons cases. So I don't know if hopefully that
great.
addresses
No,
this.
that's helpful. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And now I have Dr. Deborah Pinto, the Identification Manager for the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science. I always say that. Sorry, Dr. Pinto. To talk to you about what they do to help locate missing persons and what you need to do to help them.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Like Beth said, my name is Deborah Pinto. I'm with the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences, and we are the medical examiner for Harris County. So by that, I mean that we are responsible for death investigation for Harris County. Our primary roles are to establish cause and manner of death, to identify the individuals that have died, that have come to our office, and then also to notify next of kin. So in this capacity, obviously, today we're going to talk about the unidentified decedents, or the deceased persons. And I'm going to tell you a bit about our identification process so you have an idea of what we do to get people identified, and then also what we require from the public. So our identification process is pretty intensive. All the people that come through our office, whether they're autopsied or just receive an external examination, they all get identified. So we do confirm ID on all of them, and the ones that we can't, we continue to work on them. So as soon as they are brought into our office, all the decedents are fingerprinted if we can't fingerprint them. So that's where we get most of our IDs. A lot of them go through the criminal database, or if we have an idea of who this person is, we can even look at the driver's license databases. So this goes through law enforcement. Another way of IDing these individuals is contextual ID. So if at the scene their parent was there, their spouse was there, somebody that knows them was there and says this is so and so, and there's enough information at the scene to confirm that this is probably the person they found in their house. It was locked. They have their ID. Everyone knows who they are. They're viewable. We may go with the contextual ID. And if we can't get fingerprints and contextual ID isn't working, the medical examiner, the pathologist working the case, will request for radiograph comparison. So in this case, we can do a dental comparison. So we know who we think we know who the individual is. We can get these records, the dental records from their families. We can do a dental comparison. Either the forensic anthropologists in-house do it, or we do have a forensic odontologist who we do consult with as well. In addition, we'll do skeletal x-ray comparisons. So if the individual had maybe some type of surgery and they have a surgical implant, we'll look at those x-rays to see if we can compare them. There are some things, some features of bone that if you look at it radiographically or through an x-ray, you can try to confirm ID that way. So those are some of the methods. We also collect DNA from our deceased persons if we have no luck in finding family. But if we do have luck in finding family, and we have to still confirm the ID, we will do a DNA comparison with those individuals. So we will also collect family reference samples. So that's a buccal swab, a cheek swab from the family members as well. And we can do the comparison in-house, or we send it to the University of North Texas, which Mr. Nance here will talk to you a little bit more about. No, shouldn't have had coffee.
Yeah, you can always come stand up here.
I'm good, thank you.
I know, nobody wants to stand in front of the mic.
Right. So what do we need from the families to do? Oh, sorry, one more method is the comprehensive ID. Wow. Excuse me.
That's your water.
Yeah. Excuse me. So a comprehensive ID is essentially taking all those other identification methods that I talked about and combining them, because no one method by itself has provided us with a positive ID, but we can't rule out either, so we can't exclude. So if we have enough of evidence supporting that this individual could potentially be who we think it is, then we go with the comprehensive ID. And so depending on the type of identification modality we use, the time can vary. So fingerprints are very quick. We can get that done within a matter of hours, to a matter of days. Something like DNA can take months. So we always opt for the faster methods, and then DNA tends to be our last modality that we use. But that doesn't mean that we don't collect DNA right away. It just means that we'll get those results a little bit later. So what's most important for the public to know is that we need families to come forward. A lot of these methods I talked to you about, actually all of them except for fingerprints, require families to provide us with the information. We need a name, we need dental records, we need skeletal records, we need a DNA sample, so we need all kinds of information. So we need families to come forward. If you're missing somebody, if you think you're missing somebody, file a missing persons report so that we get that information. We get as much information as possible about the individuals, like even descriptions of the individuals, scars, marks, tattoos. If you have photographs of the tattoos, that can help as well. And if you have families in other, if a family member thinks from a different country thinks that, hey, I think, my loved one came through your office, we can even coordinate with the consulates to get DNA samples collected. Incidentally, with DNA samples, we prefer parents or offspring, so that for the comparison, but I think you can talk a little bit more about that.
You're doing great.
Okay. And so, but even if we do contact the consulates, we ask that families still follow up, because a lot of times, the consulates will receive our messages, they'll, receive our phone calls, but they won't necessarily move as fast as we'd like them to. So families can encourage that, can kind of move that process along. And then law enforcement can also collect that missing person's DNA. So it doesn't necessarily have to be us. Our office can coordinate collection of DNA from the family members, but we're not the only ones that can do it. Law enforcement can do it as well. And so basically what we want you guys to know is that we put in our maximum effort to get individuals ID'd. If a case takes a while to get ID'd, it's not that we didn't do anything on that case and then eventually, something just triggered. It's that we've been working on these cases. We currently have over 300 or so cases of unidentified decedents from Harris County, and actually some of our surrounding counties that we brought up, but that have come through our office as well. And these date all the way back to 1957, 1958. And we are constantly working these cases. So they don't remain dormant. We do, whenever we have the resources to review and readdress these cases, we do so. And that happens pretty frequently. So feel free to go through, we have binders in the next room that have all these cases in there. And if you think that somebody there matches, even remotely matches your loved one, we are definitely willing to look at it and review the cases with you and just help you, get your family back. And also, one last thing, we will use all kinds of internet sources that we can, like Facebook and Ancestry, and also, yes, we do pry into people's personal lives. As long as we can get them ID, we try to do everything we can. So, that's great.
Thank you so much. Don't forget, we're going to take questions at the end, and there are some note cards if you don't want to forget your question to write down. All right, so thank you. We have Michael Nance from the regional specialist for NamUs, and I want to. One of the things I would like you to address, Michael, if you wouldn't mind, sort of people hear about NamUs and CODIS and University of North Texas. Would you sort of talk about what, in addition to what you're going to say, about how those all work together?
Sure. Because it is kind of confusing. NamUs is a Justice Department program funded by your tax dollars, so everything is provided, so there's no charges. And it's managed by the University of North Texas Health Science Center in Fort Worth. The University of North Texas also has the Center for Human Identification, which is their DNA lab and their anthropology lab. So NamUs works with the UNT's anthropologists and their DNA lab. Now, when your DNA is collected, it's not entered into NamUs per se. It's entered into the FBI's combined DNA index system, and that's maintained obviously by the FBI. Now, NamUs does have a record in the NamUs case file, or the NamUs record for your missing person, that indicates that DNA has been collected. It doesn't name the person that's collected from, but at least indicates the relationship of the donor sample to the missing person and the lab, because there's Cal DOJ in California, there's the FBI has a DNA lab, and there are some agencies that still use their state labs. The University of North Texas, however, has over 50% of the DNA in the entire CODIS system from the University of North Texas. They've been a dedicated missing persons DNA lab since 2002. And so it's like that insurance company commercial, you know, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. That's the way I characterize the UNT's DNA lab. They've been doing missing persons DNA since 2002, and so they've seen a lot of DNA. They've seen a lot of family reference sample DNA and unidentified persons DNA, and so they have a lot of experience there. They're one of the few labs in the United States that does mitochondrial DNA, and that's important because we have two types of DNA. We have mitochondrial DNA and well, make it generalized, but we have mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA. And oftentimes, when Dr. Pinto finds a decedent, we were able to get only a partial nuclear DNA sample or no DNA sample at all from the nuclear side. But the mitochondrial, there's more mitochondrial DNA in your body, and it's a more hardy DNA than the nuclear sample, and so we're able to get a complete mitochondrial sample. And so that's why in missing person investigations, mitochondrial DNA is so important. Another issue is that if you read a newspaper where someone's been convicted because of a CODIS DNA hit in a criminal case, they're looking at DNA from a suspect in a case to DNA from a crime scene. So they're looking at the exact match of DNA. In missing persons DNA, when we're dealing with family reference samples, we're dealing with a family member, so it's not identical DNA. So we need as many family reference samples as we can from as many close relatives to try to get as much of a DNA profile as possible. So if as a family member here that has given their DNA, and you know that you're the only family member that's given a DNA sample, if you know of other family members that are available and can provide a DNA sample, let us know so we can get 2 or more. There's a threshold that the CODIS system, the Combined DNA Index system, works in their algorithms, and it really performs much higher, much greater searches if it has 2 or more family members in the system. And it will still work with 1 sample, but it's much more effective if it has at least 2. So if you know that your case only has 1 sample and you know of other family members, please contact us. If they don't live here in Houston, there's no problem. We can get you collected anywhere in the United States and sometimes outside of the United States as well. So we can get these DNA samples collected. So I hope that kind of explains the differences of the different entities. But the University of North Texas Health Science Center has a pretty high priority on identifying missing persons. They developed their Center for Human Identification years before NamUs was ever developed. And through that process, I think the National Institute of Justice realized what a crisis this is in the country. And in fact, they wrote an article, Missing and Unidentified Persons, Our Nation's Silent Mass Disaster. And that's, as you unfortunately realize, it is a disaster. And something that NamUs, I'd like to announce, something that NamUs has we continue to evolve. We've just hired a new director of family services, because we know it's not just about the missing person, it's also about you and what you suffer as a family of a missing person. And so hopefully we will soon be able to provide some services to you as families. We know if you're not familiar with the term ambiguous loss. And if you are suffering, that's something you might go to Google or to internet and research ambiguous loss, because that is an issue that whether you realize it or not, you are impacted by. And so please don't, if you need help, if you need, if you're feeling some real issues from having a missing loved one, please reach out to NamUs or someone to try to get some help, because don't try to go this alone. Obviously, Missing in Harris County Day is a great resource for you to network with other families and also the people here in your area. But realize that it is a serious issue, and don't injure your health and your well-being by struggling with the fact that you do have a missing person. So NamUs is a tool. I will say that I guess
It's contagious.
It's contagious. I will say that I work with agencies across the country, and these three people here, Darren and Bonnie and Dr. Pinto, are amazing people to work with. You all have some great resources here who work very hard for you, and you get emotional talking.
Well, I want to add that one thing NamUs does, it is a great resource for us. When I first started, we didn't even have the internet, so we've come a long way in technology and that. But one thing we've always lacked in is coordination between agencies and help between agencies. And I will say, having Mike Nance, he and I can honestly say, communicate on a daily basis, probably 3 or 4 times a day. He needs help from me. I try and provide a local assistance for somebody that may be from another state. And when I need help from another state, I use Mike Nance. And NamUs is always there. They're very dedicated to missing people, to recovering and reuniting families with their loved one. And really, we couldn't do a lot of what we do without NamUs. And that's just the honest truth. Mike Nance is a great resource, as well as Dr. Pinto and Sergeant Ewerling here. We all work closely together, where there was one time when it was kind of a do it alone type your agency, and you hope to get somebody that was passionate about it when you made a phone call. And nowadays, when I call Mike Nance, I know right away he's going to be on it. Sometimes I wonder if he ever sleeps, because I've sent emails just when something pops into my head and not expecting a reply until the next day, and I'm getting a reply faster than what I think. And I just appreciate that, Mike.
Well, when you work with dedicated folks like Darren and Sergeant Ewerling and Dr. Pinto, when you see something pop up, you want to respond to them immediately, because you want to take care of the people that that works hard, and so it's really a pleasure to work with this bunch of folks here.
Thank you so much. So we're really grateful to Tamika Backstrom C for stepping in today from the Harris Center. She was the last minute fill-in. We really appreciate it. I know she had a little bit of a deer in headlights look when she came in today, but we really appreciate it, Tamika. And so if you wouldn't mind, just let them know what you guys do and how, if somebody has a missing person and they might have come through your center, how they can communicate with you on that.
I'm gonna use the mic.
Okay, come on.
Good morning. Like I said, I'm Dr. Sia. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist, and I work with the Harris Center for Mental Health and IDD. We have a population that are dealing with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, also intellectual disabilities. And so you have a wide range of people who are going through some significant issues in their life. And I think what is helpful for kind of families to realize is that they're with their loved ones every day. They see them, they're the one with the most contact. So they're the ones that we look to as the experts to get information that we need in order to treat and provide services. And I think sometimes when you have a loved one who is suffering through some significant issues, it can be difficult to kind of accept it. And so, we may use language like, the person is a little bit forgetful, they have dementia, or, they might, be a little off, or they're having a lot of problems. We tend to speak very generally instead of using the, specific language that could be helpful to law enforcement. Letting somebody know that my loved one went missing and they have schizophrenia, or they have bipolar disorder, or they have dementia, gives them a sense of really what they're working with, and this sense of urgency about this person's ability to care for themselves. That's going to be helpful. And in knowing these diagnoses, you also want to know what it looks like for your loved one, because bipolar looks different for different people. If you are able to communicate, my loved one has bipolar disorder, and he's been talking fast, he's been, his mind is running a mile a minute, and he's been having these thoughts that he's invincible if he's just going up to people and just engaging in altercations. That provides some very specific information that can help law enforcement in their investigation and help them generate, ideas of where they want to look. Let's see what other tips it's also important to keep a copy of any type of recent diagnostic information. If the person was at a psychiatric hospital recently, that's important to know. Any discharge papers that speak to what medications they're on, what their diagnosis was, what they look like, that could be helpful. Treatment notes from a psychiatrist or case manager could be helpful to provide information about what they've looked like most recently. Also, observe your loved one, what's their typical behavior, and when did you start to notice that things were changing, things started to get a little bit unusual. If every day they wake up, eat breakfast, go out and smoke a cigarette, come inside, watch TV for 30 minutes, like their routine, and then they start to do things like wandering off for periods of times, but they come back. That's important information because you're noticing some changes in their behavior patterns. Also, things like staring off into space, not talking as much as they usually do, things like that. You want to communicate your loved one's triggers or their stressors. Communicate if they're having delusional thoughts and they're having, a fear of law enforcement, or if they are thinking that, they need to accomplish some special mission, and if they do, then they will save the world. Those things may provide information about kind of some of the thoughts they may be having, or where they may be going, or where they may have gone. Know their medications, be able to provide names of the medications that they were prescribed, and know if they've been taking them or not. This can be very helpful, not only to investigate, but in the event they're recovered and they're taken to the hospital, that's information that the hospital will want to know if they have any allergies and things like that, to have that readily available. And then I think this was mentioned by one of the other panelists, but also with this population, co-occurring substance use is more common than we would like to have happen. And sometimes family members are a little bit hesitant to reveal that information because they're concerned about, you know, maybe stigma related to drug use, thinking that they may get their loved one into trouble. And this provides information to law enforcement, maybe, you know, places that they go, places that they hang out, that they could use to help find your loved one. That's generally what I have, just kind of educating yourself on what diagnoses the person has, and then what it actually looks like is I think the most helpful when you're dealing with someone who has a mental illness or intellectual disability. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did Andy Kahn step out of the room?
No, he left.
Oh, there you are. God, I said you were sweating in your coat. You gonna come up real quick? Andy was just sharing with me that Crime Stoppers has a new program for missing persons, and I wanted him to just briefly address that before we let you get some questions and then break for lunch.
Like I said, I'm Andy Kahn, Director of Victim Services and Victim Advocacy for Crime Stoppers. Applaud all of you for being here today and some of the families that we've worked with. We started a program at Crime Stoppers actually announcing rewards for missing persons, specifically in cases in which law enforcement believes there perhaps might be criminal conduct that involved. So I'll give you an example right here. And Willie, you can stand up. And we've worked with Willie and his family for almost since September on doing this, announcing rewards and doing flyers. So in cases of that, if you can get your law enforcement, whoever you're working with, to agree to get a flyer out there, we can actually put a reward out there for you. So again, we have to have cooperation from law enforcement to do this, but we're the only Crime Stoppers in the country that has actually initiated such a program as well. So that's what I'm here for, so I'm here to help in any way I can.
Thank you, Andy. That's awesome. Thanks so much for starting that. I know you have a passion for missing persons, as does everybody on our panel. Now, does anybody have any questions? Come on. I know somebody's, yes, John.
I actually have about 4 or 5 questions. I don't want to take time away from anybody else, so.
You're just postponing lunch, so don't worry about it.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Yeah, just kidding.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, for being here. This is really special to us who have missing people, so thank you for all of it. We appreciate it. First question is for Detective Juicy.
Yes, sir.
As far as jurisdiction goes, how does HPD work collaboratively with other law enforcement entities? My example for that is we're from Spring, Texas, so do you work collaboratively with other law enforcement agencies outside of Houston?
Absolutely. If they're bordering agencies, you know, I use Bonnie very often. We communicate on a regular basis. There's other contacts I'm sure she has that I have with other agencies. If it is an agency that is not as close to Houston, I said earlier, I jumped to Mike Nance. I have pending now probably 4 or 5 cases that he's helping me on in other jurisdictions outside of the state, collecting DNA, or if it's if I need an officer to run to a location. Typically before that, I would have to call the agency and hope that I would get somebody that would go out there and do a good follow-up for me. Mike Nance has contacts that he deals with on a regular basis, so he has a more personal relationship with them, as he has built with me. So when he calls me, I know he needs something, I know the severity of it. I go out there and try and provide the assistance that I can for that agency that's needing it, and give follow-ups. And it's a lot better than what it used to be, and partially because of NamUs and I guess technology as well. It's easier to communicate between agencies.
I think the biggest thing, where the person went missing from is the jurisdiction that's going to handle the missing person report. And I think that's what people don't always understand. I know you live in Spring, and I know what Allie's situation was, but if the person was in downtown Houston at a bar and that was the last place they were seen, then HPD would do the report. If they were released from jail and nobody saw them and they didn't make it back out to Spring where they live, HPD would do the report because the last known place they were is in the city.
You can think of it as when a crime occurs, it's not where the person lives, it's where the crime occurs. And that, when we have a case, like Bonnie's mentioning, say in Spring, they come to Houston, they go to a club, and then they go back home, or they're supposed to go back home, and they come missing in Houston. That would be an ideal case where we're going to do our investigation, but behind the scenes, we're going to be contacting them to see, any type of records, any type of research they can do for us on their computers, because a lot of people think I can get onto what most people refer to as a system and see anything and everything about every other agency, and that's not true. I have what is available to me with HPD, some national database stuff, but I really rely on calling other agencies to try and have them run and give me information, whether it's calls for service at a location, whether it's criminal history, whatever it could be. I want to get with that agency and find out that history. It kind of goes back to when we talk to a family, we want to open the book of everything about the family, and I know that's hard to do, but we kind of do that on our side with law enforcement. We want to see any activity that person may have. It could be they made a report, somebody assaulted them at some point in time. Well, that could be important to us. It could be something that somebody stole something from them. Anything could be the piece of information that we need. So yes, that collaboration is there.
And so, in the instance of Spring law enforcement, would they work with HPD as well? They would ultimately take the information, like you said, and begin the investigation.
Yes, it should go back and forth.
Do they have the same standards that HPD does across all
I
law
can't,
enforcement?
I couldn't speak for, another agency, but in my experience, working with many of the agencies around Houston, we do have that. That goes back to what I was talking about, my relationship with Mike Nance, and even at events like this, you always meet somebody new. I try and build a relationship immediately with them if I can use their knowledge, their wisdom, their tools, because I'll never know when I'm going to need to call upon them. And again, with Mike Nance, he's built those relationships around his region of responsibility, and if I can't get it, he sends me to somebody that has another region. NamUs has several different regions and regional administrators, and if he can't answer the question, he sends me to one of those, and then he connects me with the person I need to speak with. And I've never had an issue with it. Never had an issue with dealing with it.
No, I'm sorry. Just before I forget, excuse me, this question's for Deborah, Dr. Deborah Pinto. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Do you have a website? Because I noticed you said we, whenever you were saying we need
Yes.
information. I mean, do you get it from NamUs? Do you get it from CODIS? Do you,
So,
are y'all tied in?
So we do have our own website on our, we have a missing persons page or an identified deceased page. That's part of the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences webpage. So families can go and search through some of our older
Yeah,
cases.
I've seen
Right.
the pictures.
But all those cases are also in NamUs. So
Uh-huh.
we made sure that all our cases are in NamUs.
So y'all are all
Right,
like
and
that?
exactly. All our cases are also in NCIC, which is the National Crime Information Center
Yes.
database, so law enforcement have access to that as well. So yes, we put all our information out there. As a matter of fact, we also, as cases come in, newer cases that we can't get, we haven't had any success getting ID'd within a few days, we'll even disseminate that information through the media. We have an awesome public information officer who will just send it out to different outlets, so it gets out there. We do our best to.
How many unidentified persons did you
There's about, it's about a little over, it's over 300, so maybe around 350 or so.
I mean, that's not a real high number, and so, I mean, that kind of gave me a little bit of hope, you know, thinking that, you know, my son's remains, anybody ever comes across them, you know,
They'll be ID'd.
they'll be ID'd, you know.
Well, we definitely do our best to, you know, address each and every case. We try and get as much information. We will resubmit fingerprints periodically because, just because we submitted the fingerprints this year doesn't mean that 5 years down the road, they're still gonna be, you know, hits. Because, my understanding is correct, law enforcement agencies are constantly inputting into the fingerprint database. So, you know, people have been handled at some point in time, and not every agency will put it into the database, but as time progresses, you know, people are, different agencies are getting on board and adding to the database. So resubmitting these fingerprints, we can actually get hits, and we've had that success in the past.
I might add to that. NamUs has what they call the CAFIS system, the Cogent Automated Fingerprint Identification System. And that's a system where fingerprints are constantly searched. And so as new fingerprints are added to either the missing person side or the unidentified side, they're constantly compared against. And it uses the FBI's NGI technology, or next generation identification technology, which is some greater technology. In fact, within the last 2 years, they've made over 250 identifications of fingerprints that had been previously searched through the AFIS system, or the fingerprint identification system. So this NGI technology is much greater and it's more effective. And so having those prints into the CAFIS system, as Dr. Pintos indicated, as new prints are being added, it continually searches and it comes up with
So-
I mean, I give props to NamUs because I know, I think that you guys came on board like in '09 or something.
Yes.
And see, my son went missing in '07. And of course, I was, you know, just trying every which way to find, you know, to get it out there. And when you guys came on board, my son's got a real low number because he's one of the first ones. But you had like a 5-star deal, and to get to a 5-star, you know, like a lot of information. I mean, you guys helped me get his dental record. Y'all sent me to the police department to get myself swabbed, you know, to, because I was the next closest delivery thing to my son. I mean, it was just those small things, you know, that gave me hope to know that I was going to find him again one day. And here we are, 2019, you know, and look where I'm sitting, because I still am more interested today to find my son than I was when I lost him in 2007.
And we do our best to put in all the information into NamUs. So if we have, you know, dental information, we put that in. If we have fingerprints, we submit the whole fingerprint card to NamUs and they'll code it. DNA information, we'll submit DNA samples if we have them available. So a bulk of our cases are from the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So these are pretty old cases, but you know, from 2000 or so, there's not as many, which is great because whatever process we've been putting into place has been working, and especially since the formation of the anthropology division of the ID unit in 2006 or 7, they created a protocol for things that we need to do when a person is unidentified, so that we can get all that information, you know, into the system. And so we've had fewer unidentified decedents since then. So our caseloads are.
That's awesome. Thank you. God bless you.
So, Ms. Hernandez, if, so I frequent NamUs weekly, sometimes more. If I were to find, something that I thought was my daughter, what is the process? So,
I'm sorry, if you found remains,
yeah, if I
remains
had an
somewhere?
entry that I thought.
Oh, I see, something that was you saw online that you
Yeah,
thought might match your daughter,
If
okay.
I was on the NamUs site and I saw a new entry that I thought was a possibility that, I mean, I call the Harris County ME's office, and I have to say, you guys are wonderful. You're very kind, and I can't say enough good things about you guys. And I hope that when I sent my daughter's dental records to you guys last week, they went to NamUs. Does that happen? You guys were on top of
forensic odontologist, does all the dental coding and gets them entered in the NAMUS, and also provides, is it a Houston PD case or Harris County Sheriff's Office?
That's an HPD.
Okay, and they'll also provide them with the NCIC entry, so that they can enhance the NCIC entry for the case as well, with the dental charting on that side. So yeah, just get those to me, and so whenever you go into your daughter's record, you'll see my contact information there, and just email that to me, and I'll take care of it.
Okay, I'll come see you when
Okay.
I know there are a couple more questions, but we're running out of time. The pizza's sitting back there getting cold. So I think, John, if you don't mind, if you can come up and ask your questions of these folks. I think we're gonna let everybody else start grabbing some food. What we'd like you to do is get a plate of food and then come back and sit at the tables. We're gonna have the families speak. And I'm gonna go and try to get some help to spread these pizzas out so it'll go faster for you to get your food and stuff. And so, like I said, if you don't mind, there's some coolers with water, and there's some pizzas and stuff. Let's try to do that as quickly as possible and come back and eat, and then we'll have our family panel. And thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Sorry, I should have asked for a round of applause first.
I'm
gonna sit with her right there.
Now that we're trying to get the DA to discharge, they were here.
That's fine. Grab me if you see me around, okay? Thank you.